إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise and glory belongs to Allah, Almighty God. We thank Him and we seek His help and His guidance and His pleasure and His forgiveness and His protection from the evil whispers within us and the evil consequences of our misdeeds. For whomever Allah guides, none can lead astray, and whomever Allah leaves without guidance, none can offer them guidance. And we testify that no one is worthy of our worship and our devotion and our dedication and our lives and our love entirely and our obedience entirely, but Allah and Allah alone, without any partners, the true Supreme King. And that the Prophet Mohammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is indeed in truth His Prophet and His servant and His messenger, whom He sent as a mercy to the worlds before the coming of the hour. I thank Allah Azza wa Jalla at the onset of this day for gathering me with you one more time at Jumu'ah. And this does bring me great joy, and I would claim and presume that if our Prophet ﷺ were alive today, nothing would make him happier about our times, but the people that through it all are still in the masajid. People that are longing to draw nearer to Allah, longing to meet Him, working hard, impatiently trying to please Him, despite all the challenges and despite all the struggles. He would be happy to meet you, alayhi salatu wassalam, because that was His greatest concern. As Allah Azza wa Jal said, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. There has certainly come to you a messenger from among you. Seeing him as from amongst you, a human messenger, like you are human, is a key factor in appreciating him. A messenger from amongst you, then it is very difficult for him to see you go through difficulty, to see you go through hardship. It hurt him to think of you hurting. It distressed him and kept him up at night to see people in distress and anticipate that people after his time would be in distress, or that worse, people would lose their path to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Harisun alaykum, the verse continues. He is so concerned with you. بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ, and with the believers in particular, so compassionate, so merciful. Jabir radiallahu anhu says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَثَلِي وَمَثَلُكُمْ كَمَثَلِ رَجُلٍ أَوْقَدَ نَارًا فَجَعَلَ الْجَنَادِبُ وَالْفَرَاشُ يَقَعْنَ فِيهَا وَهُوَ يُذْهِبْهُنَّ عَنْهَا وَأَنَا آخِذٌ بِحُجَزِكُمْ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَفْلِتُونَ مِنْ يَدِي. The example of me and you is like the example of a man who started a fire. And so the moths and the locusts are diving into it, while he is trying to chase them away from it. And I am grabbing onto you by your waistbands, trying to keep you away from the fire, and you're slipping from my hands as well. You're slipping past me. And in Sahih Muslim, Abdullah ibn Shaqiq rahimahullah, he says, I asked Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, هل كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي وهو قاعد? Did the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم ever pray while seated? So she said, نعم بعدما حطمه الناس. She said, yes, but only after he was worn out. He was worn down by the people, meaning by serving the people, with every last ounce of energy he had. And in Sahih al-Bukhari and elsewhere, Anas radiallahu anhu says he heard sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the messenger of God heard that a young Jewish boy was on his deathbed. And so he rushed to his house. We lost our breath catching up with him. فَبَلَغَ مِنَّا الْجَهْدَ نُدْرِكُهُ فَقَالَ يَا غُلَامْ قُلْ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And he said to him, O young man, say La ilaha illallah. Say none is worthy of worship but the one true God. And he turned to his father, and his father said to him, أَطِعْ أَبَا الْقَاسِمِ. Obey Muhammad. Obey Abu al-Qasim. And so the young man said La ilaha illallah, and then he passed soon thereafter. So the Prophet ﷺ exited the house, يَتَهَلَّلْ وَجْهُهُ, with his face beaming from joy, and saying, Alhamdulillah الَّذِي أَنْقَذَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Praise be to Allah who saved him in the last moments from slipping into the fire. And our Prophet ﷺ, on a fourth occasion, he heard a man in his prayer say, a man that he was extra considerate with. So the man found himself, without thinking perhaps, saying, Allahumma arhamni, warham Muhammadan, wa la tarham ma'ana ahadan. Oh Allah, have mercy on me, and have mercy on Muhammad, and don't have mercy on anybody else. And so the Prophet ﷺ said to him, لَقَدْ حَجَّرْتَ وَاسِعًا. You have limited something that is very wide. Allah's mercy can accommodate us all, and we want everyone to receive that ultimate share in the hereafter of Allah's mercy. In fact, in one hadith, Ubadah ibn Samit radiallahu anh says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مَنِ اسْتَغْفَرَ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِكُلِّ مُؤْمِنٍ وَمُؤْمِنَةٍ حَسَنًا. Whomever includes in their prayer for forgiveness all of the believing men and all of the believing women. Oh Allah, forgive all the believing men. Oh Allah, forgive all the believing women. When you make it that inclusive, when you want them to be forgiven as bad as you want to be forgiven, He said Allah writes for you, for every single believing man and believing woman, a good deed. That number, of course, is not a number, it's innumerable. And so this was the path of your Prophet ﷺ. And so here's a bit of a sober question, an honest question. Are you on his path, that particular path of his? Calling to Allah, inviting to Allah. Concerned people will deviate from the path of Allah. Concerned people will go through distress away from God, the greatest distress, and not have enough time to return course. The Prophet Allah Azza wa Jalla says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. Say to them, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this is my path. Sabili ad'u ila Allah. My path is that I call to God, I invite to God. Ad'u ila Allah ala basira. I call to God upon clear sight. I know who God is, I know what God wants, I know how to deliver the message, I know who I'm speaking to, because I'm sensitive enough to care to find out how to all of that upon insight. Ala basiratin ana wa man ittaba'ani. Upon insight, me and those who follow me. So this ayah leaves no room for ambiguity, for lack of clarity. Are you on his path? His path is one where he calls to Allah, genuinely concerned about the creation. And the implication also should be very clear. His path, and only his path, winds up in the place that you want to get to. The place that anything less than it is not survival. There is not paradise, hellfire, and a stoop in the middle where you just sit down and hang out. There's only two locations. His path leads to one, and if you're not on his path, you're in great jeopardy of winding up in the other. So are you on his path? The path of da'wah, the path of concern for the creation, the path that winds up with a reunion between you and him, alayhi salatu wassalam. In Sahih Muslim, Rabi'a ibn Ka'b al-Elshinawy radiyallahu anhu said, I used to bring the wudu water for my Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, for the Prophet of God. So if he gets up in the middle of the night, he wants to wash up to pray, water is readily available. And so he wanted to repay me, he felt indebted to me, that I burdened myself this way for him. So he said to me, Salni ya Rabi'a. Oh Rabi'a, ask me for something. Ask me for something. Make a wish, basically. And so he says to him, give me time. Not every day that the Prophet, Messenger of God, tells you that. And so he came to him a few nights later. He said, oh Rabi'a, what is it that you want? Tell me. Maybe I can offer it. Maybe I can help you. He said, أسألك مرافقتك في الجنة. Those are our goals. Brothers, if you can move up and fill the gaps as best you can. Those are very lofty ambitions, very fiery ambitions. He says, I ask you for your company in paradise. So, Rabi'a ibn Ka'ab didn't have a house. He was from Ahl Sufa, the people that lived next door to the Prophet ﷺ. They lived in the masjid. They lived on the sand. That means that everyone goes home at night after Isha. They have no place to go to. Everyone goes out and gets dinner, and if no one remembers them, they're going to go to sleep hungry that night. They have many needs. But his greatest need, he said, I need to be with you forever. I need to be with you in al-akhirah. And then when he didn't say, I want to be in Jannah either. Because he didn't even ask for a paradise in paradise. A palace in paradise. That's not what he asked for. He asked for what gives that paradise its greatest value. That you are close to Allah and close to His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, when you have a house, you go to certain cities in the United States, and you feel like the house is not worth it. It's small, it's tight, there's no parking. Why? Why does it cost 10 times as much to live here as opposed to a quiet suburb miles away? They say, no, but you don't know who lives in this neighborhood. Next door is this celebrity, and next door is this politician, and next door is this personality. That's what gives it its worth. And that's why, like the wife of Fir'aun, she said, Rabbi bnili indaka بيتا في الجنة ليس بيتا عندك اختارت الجار قبل الدار كما يقولون. She said, oh Allah, when she was being tortured by Pharaoh, the Quran tells us that she said, oh Allah, grant me with you a house, not the house with you. She chose the neighbor before she chose the house, because that's the most valuable thing. The nicest house in the world with obnoxious neighbors doesn't just lose value, it loses every sort of taste. So she asked for the highest company. That's what Rabi'a ibn Ka'ab was asking the Prophet ﷺ. I want to be with you. And then when he did this, it wasn't just wishful thinking either. Right? Like this is a person who left his house, left his home, left his comfort, left his family to be the neighbor of the Prophet ﷺ in dunya, to live next to him in the masjid. If that's what it takes, I'll do it. And so he did that so that his requests can be legitimate. Finally, what did the Prophet ﷺ tell Rabi'a when he made this request? He said, أَعِنِّي عَلَى نَفْسِكَ بِكَثْرَةِ السُّجُودِ. Help me help you. Is basically what he's saying, alayhi salatu wassalam. Help me help you by making many prostrations. Every sujood you make to Allah Azza wa Jal is another level you climb. So long as you hold on to those sajdah, you protect them, you don't invalidate them, you're protective of them. Every sajdah you make, that is the greatest thing you can do for yourself. Not just in Ramadan. To safeguard the prayers and the quality of those prayers and the timeliness of those prayers 5 times a day without negotiation. Nobody's better than you, except one person. Someone who does what the Prophet ﷺ did, to promote other people to make sujood. And that takes many forms. Of them is building masajid, and we will not talk about that in today's khutbah. We tell everyone, this masjid is far from resource to get built, and every sajdah that's made is in your scale of good deeds until the day of judgment, as if you made those sajdat. Absolutely. But there is something, one thing, that is better than even that, even better than building a masjid and getting people to make sujood inside, and that is as-sajid qabla al-masajid, they say. get the person himself to make sujood. The masjid is a place of sujood. The sajid, the person who makes sujood, should be your greatest priority. What is the point of filling our masajid if they are empty? If they are frequented once a week? You would be, in that case, if your intention is in the right place, on the path of the Prophet, a person of da'wah, calling people to lower their heads to God, to find purpose in life through lowering their heads to God in sujood, you would be the best person on earth. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Who is better than someone who calls to Allah, meaning there is nobody better, than someone who calls to Allah and works righteousness and says, I am one of the Muslims, I am of those who submit. So he responded to Allah's call, and then he called others to what he responded to, the call of God, the invitation of God. So Al-Hasan rahimahullah says, فَهَذَا حَبِيبُ اللَّهِ وَهَذَا وَاللَّهِ وَلِيُّ اللَّهِ. He says about this ayah, this person, by Allah, I swear, this is the dearest person to God. This is the closest person to God, the one that gets other people to connect with Allah. So I want to ask you a question. Why don't we do this? Even in our most immediate circles. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have this drive in us to go convince people, teach people to respond to Allah Azza wa Jall's call? Teach people, convince them to love Allah, because da'wah, what's da'wah about? Da'wah is all about love. Your love for Allah and your loving for people what you love for yourself, to be connected to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not on submission just to get people to agree with you because it's you, but because this Islam of yours is the most valuable thing you have, and you're in love with it. And if you're in love with it, you're supposed to be talking about it, or else question that love, go back and rediscover it. Go back and rediscover it, because really, any young person here, even you perhaps when you were young, when you fell in love with a girl, and you said she's the perfect girl, and I need to marry her, and you go home and you talk to your mom or your dad, or someone who's going to talk to your mom and your dad, and you just start selling it, right? You say she's absolutely perfect, great family, well-mannered, beautiful, until like your mom and your dad is really like, oh man, maybe she is. Because you loved her. And so you couldn't help but talk and endorse and advocate and invite to her. Draw people's attention to her. That is the path of your Prophet ﷺ. Loving Allah above loving all else, and loving for people what you love for yourself. To get in on this love of Allah Azza wa Jalla, regardless of what it will cost. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, how did they even transform the world anyway? They would read in the Quran how the people before them did it. وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ. In Surah Yasin, Sahibu Yasin, a man came running from the farthest end of the city, on foot. I don't have a camel, I don't have a car, no problem. Nothing's going to get in my way. He said, oh my people, follow the messengers. He didn't leave this to the messengers. He didn't say, da'wah is not my job, I'm not a shaykh, I'm not a preacher. This is everyone's job who desires Allah's pleasure, who desires Allah's company, who desires neighboring Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That surah is a perfect depiction of it. And then at the end of that story, it's on the second page of Surah Yasin, go back to it. Allah says about this man who exerted his every effort to call them to guidance, قِيلَ دُخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ. It was said to him at the end of his story, meaning by Allah, enter paradise. Some narrations mention, though it's not in the verses, but it is possible, that they killed him for his call. He was persecuted and killed, and then told as a martyr, in the heavens, enter paradise. But the point is, the verse does say, he was told, enter paradise. قَالَ يَا لَيْتَ قَوْمِي يَعْلَمُونَ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ. Then he said what? I wish my people knew. I wish my people knew what this is like. I wish my people knew the promise of Allah was true. I wish my people knew that paradise was a reality and not wishful thinking. I wish my people knew what was in store for them with Allah Azza wa Jalla. Despite him dying, he's still looking back, because that focus on the creation is a quality that Allah wants you to have. So if you know Allah, you'll have that inside you. And that's why some of the Salaf, some of the early Muslims, they used to say, لا يبتسم في وجه الفاسق إلا من عرف الله. Nobody smiles in the face of a sinner except those who know God. You're not smiling because you're pleased with what they're doing. You're smiling because you wish well for them. And you want them to see you as someone who is not chasing them away. And you want them to know that you have their medicine. And so the person that knows God will go out and look for these people and smile in their faces and make them feel welcome. Welcome in God's house, welcome in God's religion. Fully eligible for God's mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will not be able to sit still. Can you imagine? Wallahi, this is how the Sahaba changed the planet. They could not sit still. Imagine, forget not sitting still. Imagine the Muslims in this masjid were to, after this khutbah, and I don't want to say challenge you, but to tell you honestly, pick one Muslim right now and say, this Muslim will be my project after Ramadan. I'm going to keep them in the masjid after Ramadan. The early Muslims, they could not sit still. And even the Muslims in our age that left a mark could not sit still. I read about a young man in Germany who his friends felt bad for him because of how tirelessly he worked for the cause of Islam. And so they actually booked for him and his wife a vacation, isolated. They put them on like a cottage somewhere, and they promised to come back a few days later. And when they came back a few days later, they found that he started like a mini organization, an Islamic organization. He found a few of the workers that work in these resorts, a few Moroccan brothers, and he told them, you guys don't have a masjid around here? Let's start a masjid in any little basement, any little apartment. And he started to work wherever he was. You know Sheikh Ali Tantawi, rahimahullah, the great Syrian scholar who passed very recently. He says, I entered a small masjid once in Aleppo, in Halab. And I saw a young man that I could not believe was praying next to me. I said, this guy. And so after Salah, I said, MashaAllah, like, what brings you to Allah's house? I'm so happy to see you. He said this person, he used to drink and he used to party and his parents threw him out of the house and he used to never pray and everything you could think of. A rebel without a cause, as they say. He said, what's your story? How'd you get in here? He said to us, he said, my tawbah, my reform was in a nightclub. There was an elderly sheikh in a masjid here in town that one time turned around and said to the people, the older folk, where are all the young guys? They said, Sheikh, they're in the nightclub. And he said, what's a nightclub? He said, you know, a place where people party and girls are dancing and there's shows. And he said, everybody's there? He said, yeah, that's what happens at night, Sheikh. He said, then what are we doing here? He said, what do you mean? He said, we have to go get them. He said, Sheikh, you're not serious. You're going to get beat up. He said, I don't care. I'm not better than Mohammad, alayhi salatu wassalam. And so he went, and the bouncer brought out the manager, and the manager says to him, no, you're absolutely not getting in. He said, we just want to speak to the people inside. He said, you're crazy. There's no way we're going to let you inside. He said, how much do you make a night? And he negotiated with the manager to give him a day's earnings to let him in. He said, fine, but not today, tomorrow. The next day, he comes. They let him in. This young man is telling the story. He said, I was in the nightclub that night. And a girl was dancing on stage. And the curtain came down. And then it came back up for the next skit. But there's an old man with a big beard sitting on a chair on the stage. They said the people had no idea what's going on. He began by praising Allah and praying for the Prophet ﷺ and mentioning ayat and hadith and words people never heard before. After a while, people realized it's not a joke. And so the guilt trip told them to shout the sheikh down. Hey, get out of here, this is not here. If we want to come to the masjid, we'll come. Until a few people that have some honest shame quieted and said, God, just let the man speak. And so he began to speak to them. And he said to them, look at your lives. You've lived for a very long time. And so much of your lives have been filled with sin. It's filled with rebellion to Allah that you owe so much to. He said, in this life of yours, all the sins you've committed, where is the pleasure that you gained from that sin? It's all gone. And the only thing that remains are those dark pages that you will be asked about on the Day of Judgment, your scrolls, your registers of deeds. And he said to them, a day will come when everything will vanish but Allah. And there will only be two destinations. And you cannot bear the fire of this world, and it's only 1/70th of the fire of hellfire, so how will anybody handle that? The young man says, so we cried, and everybody in there cried. And we all walked out with the sheikh, walked out of the club with the sheikh, including the owner of the club. He eventually shut it down and turned a new leaf with a new life. Do not sit still. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. Many people say, like, I can't do da'wah because I'm not a good person. But you not be doing da'wah if you are not a good person, if we're going to just accept that. You not doing da'wah is another indictment against you. That makes you a worse person. And it makes the whole world around you bad. Because if people are not getting up teaching each other, you know, some of the biggest movements where people have come back to appreciate Islam have started with some of the biggest scholars who are still alive today, getting in buses, like microbuses, these small buses that transport, like buses in the Muslim world, and talking to people one by one. Abu Hamid al-Ghazali's brother used to go out. He would say the people in the masajid don't know how to pray. So what about someone who's outside the masajid, outside of the cities, in the Bedouin areas, in the farmlands, in the deserts? This is all our responsibility. And so wherever my voice will reach, I will have to reach. And these people, wallahi, when they did that, they were impactful. And they were able to leave a mark. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. No one knows the troops of Allah but Him. You can be one of them. You may not realize that you can be one of them. Some people say, I can't do da'wah, I don't know much. I'm not telling you to stand up here necessarily and be someone who's specialized. Learn something, teach it to your children every night. There's one brother in this community who told me he does that. Find one person in Ramadan. If you keep him in the masjid, number one, you will stay in the masjid. You will stay in the masjid. And the stories are really beyond mentioning. And this topic has a fulfillment, but we have an appointment today. And we have a janazah prayer after the salah, so I will cut the khutbah 2-3 minutes short. I hoped it would have been even shorter. But I do need to conclude by saying that I wish everyone will dig deep, inshallah, after salah, to make dua for our sister Farah al-Umari. May Allah Azza wa Jalla shower His mercy down upon her. Allahumma ameen. As much as I am hurt, I'm not exactly sure what to be jealous about with her. May Allah Azza wa Jalla have mercy on her soul. Is it that she was a young sister in her teenage years, and so not many things were written against her? Or is it that Allah took her in the month of Ramadan when the skies are open? Or is it that He took her on Friday, the best day of the week? Or is it the fact that Allah Azza wa Jalla put her through a purifying phase fighting with that disease? Or is it the fact that her heart was attached to Allah Azza wa Jalla? Until the very last days of her life, when I visited her a few days ago, I cannot help but assume the very best of Allah, that He only gives life and takes life when He knows that is better for the believer. The believer trying to get close. The believer that we are trying to be with our da'wah, with our faith. May Allah Azza wa Jalla make our sister Farah that and beyond, and beautify her reception in the heavens. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma ighfir lana warhamna. Allahumma ighfir lana warhamna. وإلى غيرك لا تكلنا. اغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا وما أنت أعلم به منا. اللهم إنا نسألك الثبات في الأمر والعزيمة على الرشد، ونسألك شكر نعمتك وحسن عبادتك، ونسألك قلبا سليما ولسانا صادقا، ونسألك من خير ما تعلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما تعلم، ونستغفرك لما تعلم، إنك أنت علام الغيوب. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من شر ما أعطيتنا وشر ما زويت عنا. اللهم انصرنا ولا تنصر علينا، وامكر لنا ولا تمكر علينا، واهدنا ويسر الهدى لنا وانصرنا على من بغى علينا. اللهم اجعلنا لك ذكارين، لك شكارين، لك رهابين، لك مطواعين، لك مخبتين، إليك أواهين منيبين. رب تقبل توبتنا، رب تقبل توبتنا، واغسل حوبتنا، وثبت حجتنا، وأجب دعوتنا، واهد قلوبنا، واسلل سقيمة صدورنا، وسدد ألسنتنا، وسدد ألسنتنا، وسدد ألسنتنا يا ربنا، يا إله الحق، يا إله الأولين والآخرين. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to purify us and you in this month of Ramadan, and accept from us and you and make it a Ramadan to remember, and bring us out of this month having been pleased with us, and having cleansed our slates, and purified our hearts, and protected the Muslims in Gaza and in Burma and every place where Muslims are targeted. Allahumma ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.